over. Okay.
I'm Laura London, and you're listening to Speaking of Jung. Joining us today for episode 145 is Jungian psychoanalyst and world record-holding explorer and endurance athlete, Fiann Paul. A multi-faceted Jungian and modern-day Renaissance figure, his life reads like a myth written in both ink and salt water. He is the world's most record-breaking explorer, the only human to have rowed every ocean, and as a pioneering polar expedition leader, the architect of over 40 Guinness World Records. A question about the expedition he led across the Drake Passage was once part of the American television show Jeopardy, but his voyages are not confined to geography. Fiann is also a practicing Jungian psychoanalyst, whose inner expeditions rival his polar crossings. His foremost area of exploration is consciousness. He lectures at the C.G. Jung Institute in Zürich and works at the intersection of depth psychology and elite performance. His practice bridges the physical and the archetypal, from the gymnasium to the soul, from indigenous wisdom to leadership counseling. His insights have appeared across the world's leading media outlets. His artistic work in photography, music, and poetic storytelling arises from the same place as his athletic records, a need to give form to what moves through him. Trained as an architect, Fiann has lived on 5 continents, shaped by diverse cultures, an experience he calls his experiential education. His proudest achievement is not any accolade or title, but the act of becoming a psychologically self-made person, someone rebuilt without borrowed templates. Among his other notable titles and accreditations are Chartered Geographer at the Royal Geographical Society London, European Engineer at the European Federation of National Engineering Associations, Brussels, President of the Ocean Rowing Society International, London, and Honorary Master Mariner of the Association of Master Mariners, Gdynia, Poland. This is not a conversation with merely a former professional athlete or artist. It is a meeting with someone who doesn't fear the unknown. Fiann will join us after these words. Speaking of Jung is a listener-supported show. Please consider joining our Patreon and subscribing to our YouTube channel. I would also like to remind you of the importance of recording your dreams. Temenos Dream is a revolutionary dream tracking app available for iOS and Android. Now you can record your dreams by speaking into your phone or typing them into the app. Search for myths, legends, and fairy tales related to the themes in your dreams. Use the new advanced AI interpretation with a focus on Jung's work, looking closely at symbols and associations to consider shadow, anima, animus, archetypes, and much more. Simply download the app and create a free account. Unlimited use is available with a premium subscription. Click on the link in the description box below or on our website, speakingofjung.com, where you will find links to everything discussed in this episode in the show notes. This interview is being recorded on Wednesday, June 11th, 2025, through the magic of Zoom. Hi, Fiann.
Hello, Laura, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today. So, you are a world record holder, a captain. You were the captain of the Impossible Row, something Joe Rogan referred to as a crazy attempt to row across the Drake Passage. And you are a Zürich-trained Jungian psychoanalyst. So let's start at the beginning. When and how did you know that you wanted to become an explorer?
Good question. And not a simple answer. Life, in my opinion, can be based on one or more of these directions: experience, self-expression, and contribution. I often use this chart, if we can call it so, to help my clients orient themselves in where to begin the journey if they cannot see the beginning, because one of these can be calling us, resonating with us, more than the other, and sometimes it's more than one of these. And we can find meaning in each of these. And when I look back at my life, I feel that my life has been mainly about two of these, means experience and self-expression. And I found meaning in both of them. And I think that the explorer part of me has emerged as my reaction to the drive generated by the need for experience and self-expression. I really felt that I needed to touch the world and feel that I have experienced it. And I never aimed for becoming an explorer. I just followed what has been driving me. And to me, being an explorer is much more than just embarking on expeditions. It is basically an approach to life that extends itself to the exploration of the inner world as much as the outer world. And the consciousness, especially, has been my favorite area of exploration. I would say, obviously, it only matters. Consciousness only matters if we know that to understand life is to live life. I would like to mention a funny anecdote that I really like from my past. That was my first lesson of understanding life, meaning living life. It was in my high school. I was 16, and the history teacher asked on the first class opening the year to put some Latin quote on the first page of our exercise books. And I haven't done that. And the teacher was walking and checking, asked each of us to open and show it to her, and was walking and checking if we have it. And I haven't done that. So I quickly browsed my memory, and I had this epiphany. Okay, I will put errate humanum est. And I wrote it. And then before she came, I realized, oh no, it's actually errare. And I crossed T and I put R above. And at first I was not aware what has happened. But later I thought, wow, this was really like, like a koan like moment in Zen, when I realized that something had materialized itself. And because errare humanum est in Latin means to make a mistake is a human thing, or to fail, it's a human thing. And I actually materialized it in writing it with a mistake and correctly. And I thought it was an awesome story. So also, I would like to add to this answer that as an explorer, I express myself most authentically through expedition that I feel I leave marked on the maps of the world, like let's say some form of artistic expression. And this self-expression through action, in this case, this pioneering journey is like artistic act or even art itself. Because in my opinion, what validates art is the authenticity. When something is very authentic, it means it is likely to be an act of self-expression. And in that way, answering your question whether I wanted to become an explorer, well, perhaps in the sense of authenticity and self-expression, I wanted to become an artist, and the exploration has been my medium.
What do you have? What traits do you possess that you feel are necessary to be successful?
Well, first traits that come to my mind are dedication, authenticity, courage, strategic thinking, and high standards. And I would like to give you a funny anecdote about high standard. I was initially starting my public speaking work, if we can call it so. I was speaking on cruise ships, and after one of the speeches, one of the cruises, I was asked. First of all, they always ask audience for evaluation, for feedback form, and then they also ask the speaker. And apparently, the audience gave me the highest feedback that has ever been received by any speaker. Well, I gave myself 6 on 1 to 10 scale, average, because there were many different markers. And they asked me to comment, why 6? And I remember I said, the lecture was juicy, but there was not enough of magic in the words. Then they told me that they received the highest feedback from the audience. So, sometimes people interacting with me, they see this. Luckily, it's not only directed to the world outside of me, it's directed first of all to myself. But that definitely plays a big role in how I perceive something, including my own actions and the things I'm creating. And the previously mentioned gravity centers of my soul, when I was answering your previous question, experience and self-expression and meaning that I found in them, as I realized at some point in life, were not constructed around happiness or fulfillment, as I imagined when I was younger that it would be so. They were built around authenticity and courage. It is the most challenging thing to live life that is true to yourself. And the entire Jungian psychology, in my opinion, is actually revolving around this concept. That is still the essence of it, not the very remote, sophisticated, nuanced aspects of soul making, but actually the living the authentic life. And in this sense, success is a subjective matter, of course, because I would say more holistic manifestation of success has a chance to appear once you understand that it is not about what makes sense in life, not about what rationally speaks to you, but what drives you and what wants to come to the world through you. And of course, we need courage and endurance to follow it, no matter how irrational, how inconvenient, or how lonely the path.
Mm-hmm. So, what would you say has been your proudest achievement career-wise?
I think the biggest achievement of my life was pulling myself apart all the way to a blank slate and building myself from scratch. So that I can consider myself a self-made man, a psychologically self-made man, because of course this phrase is used in business and has a bit different meaning. It means I haven't borrowed from any template. Today, a lot of researchers indicate that the pain of lack of belonging is the biggest pain soul can ever experience, that it is compared, even apparently bigger pain than that one of a physical torture. And just like an explorer on polar expedition, I needed to endure a lot of this pain in order to stay faithful to myself. But from the beginning, it was my intuition that the biggest gift to the collective is not complying with it, but bringing my uniqueness to it. So the uniqueness that is based on my true vocation, not on the compliant approach to the collective expectations. And maybe I would add that according to Aristotle, words, for example, say nothing about the person, but they reflect how society perceives that person. So, for example, when systems change, we sometimes end up ashamed of awards we received under the previous regime because now they contradict the prevailing values. And I actually received a lot of trophies in my life, means awards that are direct result of my achievement, that are not a result of anybody's decision or opinion on me. And the biggest one was Ocean Explorer's Grand Slam. But when it comes to awards that result from someone's decision, from someone recognizing the value of my actions, I received very few of those. I would say almost none.
Well, you're about to receive the Freedom of the City of London. And can we mention the anecdote that you shared about it? It was funny.
Yes, I love this phenomenon. It's fantastic story. Actually, I really like the absurdity of life and the humor that it brings, often in a very unpredictable ways. It's this sophisticated relationship that many writers, for example, had with their hometown. I would say like D.H. Lawrence or Jorge Luis Borges. It could be defined as, is this hometown I feel to return to, but my characters never left. So there is some trait in it because many years ago, someone nominated me to, the title is used interchangeably in different cultures or parts of the world. Freedom of the City, Keys to the City, or Honorary Citizen. To receive this title from the small town I grew up in, like 60,000 people town, in the northeast Poland, really insignificant town in the global context. And the nomination was rejected because I was not conventional enough. I was too much of an experimentalist and not Catholic and so on. To receive it many years later from London, I think it's just
Yeah.
it's really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how would you say your outlook on life has evolved as you've embarked on these expeditions of yours?
One thing I've learned for sure is that we are surrounded by forces always bigger than ourselves and perhaps wiser than ourselves. We are a dust in comparison to the magnitude of the power of the cosmos or even nature here. And having self-distance and laughing at my life a lot was one of the major outcomes. Laughter has always been a big part of my life. Even though I might appear serious,
Mm-hmm.
I really like to take life as something to laugh at. And it is something I actually practice a lot. I never believed in the persona that I carried, so I like to, make parody of it. And same in terms of when it comes to interactions with other people and situations I'm going through. It's quite common practice. I'm sitting with my partner and we are laughing at everything that is going on, and especially at the serious tensions that are built, often between me and other people too. In big projects, there is always a lot of it. But in the end, even when we look at this lonely boat in the middle of the ocean and people in the 21st century trying to row it when you can cross this ocean in hours and by the airplane. It is in a way something a bit funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also add a bit humoristic reference that alludes to the semantic origin, the etymology of the word passion, because it is actually coming from the concept that it is something that we feel so deeply that it hurts. So in through dark humor prism, this is also something that the expeditions definitely taught me.
Would you share some of these laughter-related experiences or events?
Yes, one of my unlived lives is a life of a prankster. I love pranks, and I have created endless amount of them, but I will share some of the more appropriate ones because
Okay.
some were quite edgy. One that I remember really well, and I have a great memory of it, is my English exam when I was in my uni. I was about 20, and we had a professor who was known for very strict standards of, let's say, fair play. He hated bribes, and it was very well known fact about him. But he was my friend, so we staged the prank. I know you will not believe it, but it really happened. And I even had it actually recorded on a video. We staged the prank where if he would fail me, even though I delivered it was English oral exam. There were like 20 students in the class having this exam simultaneously. And even though I delivered okay performance, let's say, he would fail me, and I would bring, of course, this bribe, like a stash of fake money that was the real, like, big amount of money. And he would pull a fake gun, and shoot me. And the gun was like, well done, fake gun, made a noise and blast. And I would fall down, and the blood would spill because I had a beetroot juice in my suit pocket. So the blood would be on the floor, and I would crawl out of the class, and there would be no more comment, no more allusion to it. The exam would continue, and nobody like did anything, reacted, or like questioned what happened. The exam just continued, and until the end, and there was no, how to call it, no reaction. I love to observe crowd psychology. It's
Mm-hmm.
really incredible. It teaches me so much about psychology in general. Another similar prank, when I lived in Iceland, I was very prolific couchsurfing host. There was this community of people you could host. You could host other travelers. It was not a commercial platform. You would choose people based on shared interests and excitement to interact with. So I would often have a few of those couchsurfers in my home. And to them, I would also love to create all sorts of pranks. And one of my favorite ones was that my friend was with me on an audio call connected to my home audio, so his voice was heard in the entire house. Uh, and I was introducing to my guests that he was an extraterrestrial hovering above my apartment, because I live on a top floor of a high building. And he was scanning the energy of my apartment and giving instructions how to behave, and from time to time sending us frequency beams. And these frequency beams, he would play a sound through this audio, and I would like pretend with my body movement and like I am receiving this beam. And there were like three more people initiated in this prank. There were like 9 people in total that they would also be receiving these frequency beams. And so the prank would gain some credibility. But of course, the funniest part was that the people who were being pranked also started receiving these frequency beams.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
it's incredible. And it was running for the whole evening. And we would even like ask them, how do you feel? And then, yeah, I feel amazing, really. It's like I am renewed, this kind of thing.
Wow.
It's really incredible. Yes. So it's like, and even one girl who was leaving next morning early, she left a note and like, thank you for hosting and greetings to you and to ET, because I was calling my friend ET. Incredible story, really. So there were
Yeah.
a lot of those. And I know that if I were ambitious enough or dedicated enough to make a lot of these pranks public, it realistically could have been my career. Would you allow me just one more thing I remember? It's really funny about that.
Sure.
It's a good joke, trust me. So there's a lot of today tensions about gender roles and psychology of it. And I often come in the lecture with these provocative statements. I'm saying I resolved gender roles issue in my relationship very smoothly. And the resolution is simple. I decide about everything that's important in life. And my partner, she decides about everything that's insignificant. And everybody's, of course, shocked. And why, how, what? And I said, let me give you an example. I decide who created the universe, how the universe was created, when the universe was created. She decides what house we are going to buy, where we are going to live, what car we are going to have. Yeah, so that is one of my humor examples.
Well, as a Jungian psychoanalyst, what have you learned about yourself through these experiences?
I mentioned that courage and endurance are being the big propulsion in our life. One, psychology helps us to achieve awareness and insight, right? So there is this trinity: insight, courage, and endurance. And the same attributes generate the propulsion of the robot. I mean, courage and endurance. So expeditions definitely allow me to practice these. And another big question overlapping the psychology and exploration realm would be, can you bear the pain of growth over the pain of being afraid? Also, maybe one more thing, it's also a bit funny, that
Yeah.
anecdote when it comes to experiences, being Jungian psychoanalyst and an explorer. Sometimes when I lecture on mental health, I show a white coat on the slideshow, and I ask the audience, do you know who a doctor is in a mental institution? And then I say, well, they say that a doctor is the one who runs to the white coat first. And because I was an athlete, I was always ending up being a doctor. Of course, it's like this, laughing at myself and laughing a lot at how each of us is challenged in a way, even though some of us play a role. I remember how James Hollis once humoristically said in one of his books that when he worked in a mental institution, he was asked to wear a tie, so he would be recognized as a mental health practitioner, not
Yes.
an
Hmm.
scientist. Subtle way to say it. We all, in a way, struggle with something,
Yeah.
and it's often quite similar. We just play different roles in this game.
Why do you think you've broken as many records as you have? Can you point to anything specific that you feel is particularly important?
Well, I never thought I would be breaking so many of them. I
Mm.
just followed my authentic drive, and I wish I had known, because I would have planned it more commercially as well. I was once told that most people struggle to walk the talk, while you struggle to talk the walk. And honestly, it's quite an odd feeling sometimes.
Do you see your expeditions as a form of ritual? And if you do, what were they symbolically cleansing or testing or initiating within you?
My expeditions were definitely initiations into deeper layers of being, of myself. And just like any ritual, they demanded something. They demanded pain and sacrifice and presence. So each expedition was, in a way, a rite of passage. I
Mm.
remember how initially I started from this drive to want to maybe prove something, then maybe validate something, and then maybe compensate something, and then maybe transform. And halfway through, it turned into pure feeling of self-expression. And I followed it and I explored and exploited it as long as it lasted, until at some at some point I felt that this feeling has disappeared, this drive, this authentic need to perform these expeditions, and I retired because I felt from then on I could only repeat it mechanically because it was smooth already. I was high in the statistics, so it was easy for me to create new expeditions and receive funding and so on, but I really did not feel it anymore. So yes, I could say in a way the boat was the altar, the oars were the instruments, and the storms were the gods testing my worth.
Where would you say your courage came from?
A few points or attributes that I would like to mention. For sure, one. When they are not maybe in priority order, but I will mention a few.
Okay.
Outgrew illusion. I outgrew illusion, and I saw how much of fear is inherited, and socially conditioned, or comes from group psychology, like some of the pranks I mentioned, rather masses psychology. Another thing, I befriended the unknown. So the unknown is no longer threat, but a space to utilize. So sometimes when people ask me, for example, how to not be a bubble person, like bubble person in terms of knowing the world, was the best way to not end up as such. Well, I say the best way is to live in different cultures and learn life from them. And it expands your horizons, and no pun intended. And same applies to entering different dimensions and realms of the unknown. So the unknown becomes not a threat, but it's a womb for future worlds. Then next, definitely, I train my psyche like an explorer trains his body for thresholds, for storms, for initiations. And as a result, not out of recklessness, but because the authenticity mattered more, I gave up safety. Yes, and it's a common phenomenon that trading safety or security for the voice of the soul is a major embodiment of fear.
Mm-hmm.
I have to also credit my mother to a degree, who was always teaching me to not care about what people think about me. Because I later developed this narrative further. If you care what somebody thinks about you, you may end up where they are at the most. Most of those who give opinions, or the first ones to give opinions, are those who are nowhere. Choose very carefully whose opinions you listen to. Is this person really where you want to be? Which meant that in general, more likely there would be not many people, so I would not care what most people say.
Mm-hmm.
Then I tested my own depth, tasted and tested too.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that nothing external could basically define me more than my own becoming. And maybe the last 2 points now I would mention also linked to my guiding principles. One is not allowing pop culture to spill over you and to colonize you, which is what I mentioned before, unavoidable part of becoming the psychologically self-made person, and deconstructing yourself and choosing what you consciously want to be built of. So in this sense, the opposite of fear wouldn't be just bravery, but also belonging to yourself.
What is the meaning of power, true power, for you?
I'll mention a few points, and they are not in priority order. Maybe first, as it alludes to a piece of music that I created together with James Hollis, Jungian prayer, and many of them actually that we are speaking about now could be linked to it. The inner sovereignty means becoming a self-made person again. That psychologically sovereign human doesn't outsource meaning, validation, or permission.
Defense against my wound. I am my journey. I am what wants to come to the world through me. Lifelong pilgrimage to my of belonging on the altar of choice.
The next point would be the ability to shape meaning and more specifically to transmute exile into return. You know, when I lecture to young people, I often try to explain to them that you need to make the weirdo in you generate potential, not discomfort. So instead of finding radical ways to deactivate, numb, or destroy your uniqueness, often drugs is one of the ways because naturally people feel too incompatible. I would say generate potential and build yourself on it because later it would generate very strong gravity and it would have opposite effects to the initial one. Yes, I once made a survey and asked my friends if they think I'm a weirdo, and most of them said that I'm the biggest weirdo they have ever known. But the reason why probably it is intense to them is because they also see that by no means I'm trying to any degree to be a weirdo. I kind of have no choice. I'm even maybe trying to tell myself from it sometimes. So this would be definitely one of the points. Creative agency would be one of them for sure. The strength to build worlds or ideas or communities from the unseen. And to sound vision into form, whether through voyages, through words, or through silence. Also, authenticity and authentic resonance. As I mentioned before, it's really important what resonates with you and being able to tune to it. And then as a result, it moves you through life with intensity that stirs others to remember themselves more, that their essence more, their undisturbed essence more. Yes. And then also to own even more than just the right to exist. Maybe just is not the right word because the right to exist psychologically is a huge realm to own. And to own even more means to no longer perform for safety, approval, or habit. To live regardless of the consequence and from the center of you, of your being. It's also the refusal, is maybe a little bit synonymous with some what I said. It's a refusal to betray an essence, no matter what the social cost. And also, I like this quote. Can't remember whose quote it is. That you can't imagine. Oh, one historian I think said it. You can't imagine yourself a character. You have to hammer and forge yourself into one. It's a very good one. New lifestyle makes people think that everything is a matter of imagining and putting it on social media, right?
Right.
And also that you do not need certainty. Certainty is usually very compromised and never objectively resolving anything choice. We need orientation. Yes.
Is it like resistance to cultural osmosis?
Yes. It's like, I would say, modernity's real danger today is not the crisis of meaning, but contamination of meaning. I believe we undergo three major intelligence tests when we are born, and it is whether we fall for religion, whether we fall for pop culture, and whether we fall for social media. The pop culture, where the religion has been there, we can say always. Pop culture is more recent phenomenon, but in certain form it has existed for a very long time, and social media is a very recent phenomenon. I would like to say here that the biggest exposure of the absurdity of religion are the religious wars. You know, when in the war of the ideologies, actually people are dying, not ideologies are dying, while I believe that life is the only God and the only tangibly available to us and existing God. So killing the only God to exist means killing life in the name of gods that don't exist, that are made up by us, is incredibly short-sighted. Basically, the only thing that comes to my mind is congratulations, humanity. And also, the pop culture is the first thing that comes to my mind is, for example, drugs or pop culture. Pop culture has many other tentacles. It could be a very broad theme to talk about. And drugs of pop culture like sugar and alcohol that kill most people in the world of all the drugs ever consumed.
Yeah.
And of course, media and social media are one of the tentacles of it. And yes, so that's definitely where I would begin my resistance to cultural osmosis sort of thoughts.
Well, would you say a few more words about social media? I read that you led a campaign for young people against the use of social media.
Yes, definitely. I think we are also, I believe it's quite important to teach by example. So I don't use them. I see a lot of my clients are very intrigued by the fact that I don't. Of course, there is always a voice that there is a good aspect of social media, but claiming that social media are overall good for us just because it's a space for promoting potentially a good content as well is more or less just like saying that alcohol should be sold without limit because it's good for sanitary purposes. Yes.
Mhm.
And the biggest disservice to humanity that social media delivered is that it normalized a grotesque or a major distortion of self-expression as exemplified by so-called influencers. I say so-called because I believe they should be called influencee instead of influencer, because they are the ones who are actually influenced because their image is the product of the crowd's most basic preferences. Yes, so they're the opposite of a true search for one's own form of expression or an inspiration for others to grow, and that's a really terrible thing that has been normalized.
Yeah.
Like they say that many pathologies don't offend humanity, and many normalized behaviors are offensive to humanity. This, I think, is the biggest one. Yes, it's absolutely that should be the first red flag, because self-expression, I think, is one of the pillars, one of the three main pillars on which life can stand. And from the very beginning, young people are deprived of a chance to being introduced to it. Yes, and of more earthy things. So you asked me before about me being greatest achievement or being proud. As I'm here speaking about social media, I would say that I'm also proud that I got the best jobs in the world without even having LinkedIn, and the best partner in the world without even having social media or using dating apps. I
There you
maybe
go.
would not say against dating apps because it helps people to connect when they don't have chance to be physically in proximity. But still, the social media is definitely an today isolating factor. So to connect with the right people, it is an achievement worth being proud of. Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe I would also go back a bit to this culture osmosis. Because it naturally unfolds from these questions that pop culture is basically designed to spill over and colonize your psyche and disturb or block the dialogue with the soul. So you are most likely to find yourself, even if you just blindly steer away from pop culture, from the templates, uh, whether it's not an obvious equation to someone, then you can test it. You are way more likely to find yourself, even if you just blindly steer away from templates and pop culture. Yes, and of course, the true freedom begins when you choose the source code of your inner world, not install the template of it. And well, sometimes also someone once told me that my life seems to have been successfully built on positive refusal. I again would like to bring an anecdote. When I lived in Africa, I remember the situation. I was always standing my ground strong, and I always, as far as I could, did not allow to be scammed or cheated in a business or financial sense, and sometimes even with basic things. And this phenomenon happens, of course, around the world, but this situation is very special. So I'd like to bring this anecdote. So for this reason, because somebody assumed that I will not have guts to make move late because I had to leave next day morning, and somebody wanted to ask me a lot of money for this last night, knowing that I'm in the corner without a choice. I decided to leave, and it was about midnight, and taxi driver took me, and the taxi driver was also trying to ridiculously overcharge me, thinking that me as a foreigner there in the middle of the night, I would take whatever to just make it happen and not discuss. But I said no, so he stopped, and I started taking my bags out. We nearly got into a fight, but I said, no, I'm not paid. He was so shocked that I'm willing to be in the middle of the night in Ethiopia, in the city. And as I stood there with his bags and he left, there was a group of Rasta people standing. And the leader started coming to me. And I thought, okay, this is getting only worse, but I'm already warmed up. And when he came to me, he spoke to me first. And he said, I used to take money from people, but I saw you fighting with this taxi driver.
Mm.
You are a real Rasta. Today, I give you money. And he gave me money.
Wow.
It was like a koan, like a Zen koan that really put
Yeah.
my mind more in state. Like seriously, it was a thorough shock. It's a beautiful experience. The small
Yeah.
things really build you in a way that that break your mind, like like Zen master who slaps you literally or metaphorically with a koan. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was one of these beautiful examples how this positive refusal. I did not look like Rasta. I mean, I do have appreciation to their religion, but I did not make any other. I did not give him any other reason to call me so or appreciate me for it. It was just
Mhm.
for the dynamic that he observed. And I think in this cultural complex situation we live in, actually, an artist and a psychologist is the new shaman. Is the builder of the bridges for those who are looking for them, for who are looking for invisible realms to connect to. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what would you say is your role as a Jungian explorer in the collective psyche? What archetypes do you think modern culture is starving for?
As long as consciousness goes, as an explorer, you voyage and bring something from the abyss, let's say metaphorically. The abyss, I would say, is important to mention, was beautifully redefined into the openness of possibility, right? Because the initial understanding of it delivered by Nietzsche was maybe slightly darker. And I would say that I often walk on the edge, at the edge, maybe, to bring back maps from the places others avoid. So that could be an edge walker role, if we could call it so. And we are living in a culture saturated with symbols, but starved of meaning, right? And
Mhm.
I would say that people are not lacking information; they are lacking initiation. So we are hungry for the archetypes of initiate, of the sovereign, the bridge builder, and a lot of the old archetypes have been hollowed out by commercialization or commodification. And I think I'm trying to remind people that the psyche isn't a cage; it's a cosmos, and we are here to navigate it, not to numb it. Maybe one thing actually comes to my mind. I showed you. You like this diagram I made. This
Yeah.
America absurdity aureola. It's a very interesting, and I was also kind of like it wasn't my small experiment. I put it together like I intuitively felt it, and then I asked AI to evaluate. I put this data into AI. You can maybe bring this image link somewhere for the audience, and I asked to evaluate how factually correct it is. And it said factually it is 86% correct, if I remember right.
Mm.
So what this diagram showed is that our world is built on so much fiction. So the diagram goes, I would make it very shortly, that first there is a marketing convincing people they need something they don't need. Then there is insurance industry in case marketed things go wrong. Then there is legal sector facilitating these claims, and then there is the regulatory overhead approving these absurdities, and then there is financial sectors that take big slice in between, and so on, until maybe 15% actually are the real jobs where people can really feel connection with life. People who
Mhm.
actually really build, really help, really heal, really generate growth. And the rest is really sad because if you roll out from your uni and you just jump on one of these so-called real jobs or good jobs, it is often a fiction that connects neither to life nor to your self-expression. There is no real contribution to the world. When people mature, they reach this point that Joseph Campbell beautifully called when you find out that you've been climbing a ladder all your life, but by the end of your life, you find out it's been placed against the wrong wall. Yeah. So it's really intense, and it happens to many people. And I hear it from many clients, a very painful moment to mature to. Nevertheless, never too late. And the interesting phenomenon is also that, a lot of representatives of modern culture, especially from the West, they often ask me why I don't sell. They saw an amazing lecture, they saw something, why you don't sell anything? And they completely don't understand the act of self-expression. And often it happened to me. I spoke with someone extremely wealthy, and he asked me about what I'm doing. So he cracked the whole, let's say, logistic of it, in terms of being an explorer. So we go on expedition, the sponsors finance you. Then in the podcast, you mentioned the product, and I said yes. From this technical and logistical sense, you have cracked it. And he said, "What else is there to it?" And I said, "Well, there is self-expression." And he said, intuitively, he rang some bell that definitely such concept exists, but it never came to his mind to add it to any project. It was very interesting. So yes, a lot to say on the theme you addressed.
Yeah. Does your leadership experience help in analysis?
In many ways.
Okay.
Well, first, helping clients decode the corporate dynamics. That already, a lot of clients are talking about their job. And of course, one thing is to psychoanalytically approach it and help them unpack the feelings and work with the unconscious and the projections and transference that happens in the work realm and so on. But also to understand what actually happens, because, sometimes I recognize corporate dynamics and corporate tactics. A client is telling me with joy, I have much less to do now. It's a really good time at work. I said, look, this is a corporate strategy of disarming. First, they strip you of duties. Next, they strip you of privileges, and then later it actually really happened that way. And grateful to know if it can be prevented. Yes, and all sorts of things. So that's one thing, definitely. Of course, being a leader is also having this strong locus of control or self-agency or personal authority or inner king. It is called interchangeably and nearly synonymous each time. But it's a very important part that people often come to heal, right? That it has been, the inner king has been dethroned due to often very abusive and traumatic events, and it needs to be reinstalled. So leaders are rather likely to embody, and this embodiment helps. The embodiment alone helps, regardless of what therapeutic technique or what phrases I will use. Also understanding that, and that's quite unique, actually, I think, synthesis, and I don't read about it much, and I think it should be written about more, that America's corporate culture overtook personal dynamics because jobs became lives of people. There is no other life than job for many people. And corporate culture assumes two very psychologically dangerous or toxic things. One is minimize confrontation. Two is avoid addressing feelings. Yeah. So as a result, they create a really odd vocabulary, really odd tricks and phrases and behaviors and gestures that are meant to decompress, avoid, or navigate these dangerous energy centers, let's say, in the maps of dynamics, which are people's feelings and their actual, instinctual reactions and impulses and all sorts of things. And as a result, as it overtook a personal culture, people are challenged with additional layer of burden that they have to break through in order to actually start the real therapy, because that's like something that has not existed. Like the starting point was different. Yes. So this really helps to understand it and see through it. And the captain in the expedition needs to be a visionary, a seafarer, and a manager as well. So this is, let's say, a lot of leadership contained.
If your life were a myth, what would be its core symbol or totem?
I think of all the questions I've been answering, this one I'm the least confident, but trying.
Okay.
I would say that it would be the threshold. That every point in my life has involved crossing from one state of being to another, whether voluntarily or through rupture. So the threshold is not just a place; it is a tension between worlds. And yeah, maybe my totem would be some sort of portal, something between exile and return, something you do not just pass through, but you become.
Okay. Would you tell us about a turning point in your life?
There were two. Well, okay, there were many. Two that come to my mind in Jungian world being perhaps interesting. Why? Because they both are based on dreams. Yes, so we know like the unconscious dialogue with us. So the dreams played a big role in both.
Melting like snowflake, fading into dreams. On warm eyelids, touched by sunbeams, slicing with blue edge of day. Ooh, ocean, sun, and hail. Melting like snowflake, fading into dreams. On warm eyelids, touched by sunbeams, slicing with blue edge of day.
So first situation chronologically, I was around 31. I was on one of the expeditions, and I remember I had a dream at night in the boat. We were in the storm. That was not exceptional. Storms were common. And in the dream, I saw a goddess floating towards me on a raft made of dead bodies of men. I would say perhaps um, more heroic men. They reminded me a bit of these antique athletic bodies, but real bodies, not a statues or sculptures. And she floats towards me in this perfectly symmetric pose, sitting and stops in front of me. I'm on the boat as I am in actual at the moment. And we are looking at each other for a long time. It's a very scary scene, very charged and very intense. And when I woke up, I felt that something has changed. I could not name it. I could not express it. I feel that I've been redeemed in some way. And not only this expedition from then on transformed, I found additional layer of resources in me, physical and psychological, for resilience and let's say optimism. But also something changed. I can't properly name it. So this is one example of it. Another, and that one was the I'm going to mention now. It's probably the most powerful one. That's what the song speaks about. Because my songs are mainly, I call them retrospective lyrical blog, and they are mainly about lyrics. The lyrics matter to me the most. I wrote it when I was 29, when it happened. And the story goes, I was on my way to one of the northernmost towns of Greenland. It required 5 different flights, I think like 2 airplanes and 3 helicopter flights. I know it's crazy, but people who live in the Arctic, they know. If you live very remote, that's what it is, and that's part of life. And a night before, I had a dream where in details I saw how I was entering the plane, and I saw people, I saw small situations, and I saw who I was sitting next to, and so on. And then, like half an hour from takeoff, flight attendant announces that the engine is damaged. The plane leans towards right side, like, as if like one engine underperforms. The flight attendant announced that the engine is damaged. We're gonna attempt emergency landing in my plane. And so as the emergency landing is attempted, it fails, and the plane crashes, and I die. And the next day, I really go to this airport. I really board the plane. Everything is identical like in the dream. I recognize the people, the situations, and I'm sitting next to a person who I recognize from the dream too. The only difference is that I say to her, and she was actually working, she was one of the important people in suicide prevention among indigenous people. So that was especially intense for her to observe. And I tell her that as the plane leans, the same as in the dream, one wing goes down. I say the flight attendant is going to come and say, we're going to attempt emergency landing. And she said, come on. And the flight attendant comes and says exactly this. And I took my notebook and I started thinking, what are the last things I really want to now write or think about? Because if the dream is really going to be carried on, that is the end. And I'm browsing in my memory the moments of joy, the biggest moments of joy in my life to hold on to kind of cherish, cultivate. And I was so scared because the first one I found was 5 years ago. Why? Because I was a workaholic all my life. And until that time, sorry, I just made it. So I put this, I take a notebook and I'm starting to write. And I can't find these moments of joy to hold on to. That really scares me. Because, when you have plan B and plan C, it's very easy to bullshit yourself, yes, and say like, this is okay, or like, I change it, I don't change it. We can have reflections, but we don't feel really pushed to the wall. When you really believe there is no plan B, you will be brutally honest. That's why near-death experiences I lecture on are very transformative because they leave people with no options. And that's the only time we can be brutally honest. And I realized that, of course, that was an unhealthy life to live, and not being focused on what I want from this life, but pushing some agenda that is probably not even really mine in the end. It's just some of the conditioning that I carry unexamined. And I wrote these words: enormous fear and enormous shame, tree without fruits, and the woodcutter came. And these are the words that now I put into the song that I just suggested to play. Yeah, so this was, I would say, one of these intense turning points in my life that I remember very well. And after that, well, that was not the end, of course. These flights, the landing happened successfully. Then another flight took off, and ultimately I did reach the destination with a certain delay. But at this destination, which was very, very far north, like 78 degrees north. And so that's like literally like maybe a couple months in the world like that. And it was very expensive to be there, but I was so shattered that for 1 month I could not go out of bed because I was in a completely different world with myself. And I know that was a big turning point. So I did not deliver my artwork. I was supposed to photograph and take videos of indigenous people. But yes, this was one of these things also that made Greenland has a very special place in my let's say, yes.
Yeah. So have any other non-ordinary states of consciousness shaped your path?
Yes, definitely. And well, if I, as I declared to like to be an explorer of consciousness, then I would even say ocean, art, and consciousness, they all connect to depth. Consciousness is, or let's put it this way, I definitely felt invited, if it's the right word, or intrigued to examine those who seem to have explored impressively consciousness. And the first people who I would credit it for, of course, were shamans of indigenous people, because I believe indigenous people were the only people who had a user manual to this planet. So this alone was a validation to me of the credibility of their discoveries. And these shamans were the guides of this culture, let's say. They were those who helped shape it. So I believe they had some genuine and authentic connection with something worth learning. So I've learned from a lot of them, and I appreciate a lot of it. And of course, a lot of them use healing plants in the ceremonies, and I participated in a lot of them. And I think it's such a broad theme that if we open it today, it could easily take the whole podcast. So
Right.
I suggest maybe I just indicate it here, and maybe we leave it for another time,
Sure.
because that's a theme of its own.
What edge are you walking now? What threshold is calling you next?
I would like to take everything I learned from outer exploration, inner reconstruction, and merging and anchoring it into a place or a work or a way. And I would like to build something that can initiate others, not through ideology, but through contact with themselves, the wildness they have exiled. Also, I would like it to be a place where, contrary to most educational institutions, the most awarded virtue wouldn't be obedience or compliance. I believe education should, just like a proper course of therapy does, make you feel more unique, not better and just.
Talking about the edge more literally understood, I read in your manuscript quite a few extreme stories. One was about a man you trained who grew up in Kashmir.
Yes, that's right. This manuscript is to a high degree autobiographical, and this was one of the stories I like very much. So as I said, experience was one of the pillars I built my life on, and I lived on different continents. I spent at least 3 years living in Asia, and probably at least half of this time in the Himalayas. I was coaching the army there and the mountains police, and I remember one of my students later. He was talented graphic design. He managed to emigrate, and he ended up in a Western country. And once in his office, fire started, and there was an alarm, and everybody ran away, and he kept working. And then a few hours later, his boss came back. He still kept working, was still working hour, and the boss called him and asked why he didn't leave, shouting at him using different words. And he calmly answered, "Buildings used to burn around me. I didn't find it any exception." Because he grew up in a war zone. Yeah, so yes, this is one of these examples of uh, how our psychological wounds can generate strength and resilience, or let's say that there are constructive or sometimes useful aspects of pathology or wounding if they are used or applied in the right circumstances. This is just something we can imagine and work in many different ways in many different contexts. It's one of the themes I lecture on, and that's what the whole manuscript was about.
Well, the physicality of life seems to have been a theme in your own life.
That's correct. I think Jungians unfortunately don't develop a relationship with their body, at least not too ambitiously. And although I don't believe I have a mission to change the world, but one shift I would like to propose would be to abandon the paradigm that assumes that a person must be either intelligent or athletic, as if moving between these poles is some sort of unwritten violation of the rules. I think it's time that we realize that by integrating both ends of the spectrum, we are adding, not subtracting. One example comes to my mind, like in Jungian Institute, one of the students, for example, and just imagine, as I said, how charged psychologically or psychoanalytically this is, that he would call me a porn star, because it was so alien for them to see someone athletic, someone with comfort with body and has, like, a posture that defines it and so on. Yes, so it's just it's a statement of its own. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So you created the song Jungian Prayer together with James Hollis. Would you tell us a little bit about it?
Definitely. It was a great honor to work with James Hollis, and he's been, let's say, I don't know, I can say my idol for a long time. And I have a really high appreciation for him. I consider him the greatest leading Jungian. And I would like to say why. I would like to quote Antoine de Saint-Exupéry for the quote that defines, I would say, work of James Hollis very well, that perfection is achieved not when nothing is more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away.
Yeah.
And I think it's very rare that in Jungian psychology, someone manages to distill the essence of practically applicable knowledge, only the tangible one that we can relate to on every crossroad we are standing on daily basis, and is not stuck in a very remote, nuanced, and sophisticated area of knowledge. This is really a rare skill, and I would say I really appreciate it. I have, because I prefer audiobooks, so I said I listened to his books probably hundreds times, and I concluded that if you really master the material that he synthesized, you can literally navigate nearly every psychological dynamic and whatever theme or discussion or problem you would find yourself in. And I told myself that if I ever happen to lead an educational institution, I would ask one of his books, The Best of James Hollis, who someone put together, choosing his most essential quotes. That, by the way, I think now should be second part because some new books appeared after that.
Right.
Learning it book by heart will be really a major prerequisite to be a good psychologist, because if you can really bring each time uh, a truth that defines certain area of life that this book very well defended, you can orient yourself very effectively in nearly everything. So yes, so that's about James Hollis, and I would say the song to me has a special meaning. Well, it was born from my lifelong quest for self-expression and meaning. Yes, and I had to live long enough to truly feel these words, because I don't know even if it's possible to write such words without feeling them. But to really feel them, you really need to live your life. They won't just be intellectually digested and concluded, agreed with. So I think that was the moment for me to write it. And yes, I believe in the music I am making. As I said, it's mainly about lyrics, and I don't consider myself an amazing musician. But at the same time, I always try to create a song that I genuinely would like to exist and I genuinely would like to listen to, not just because I want to have something out, but that I really feel there is a need for it. I think that's the right approach, whether you write a book or you make a song, that you genuinely believe in it.
What would you say your clients like about working with you the most?
Many different opinions, perhaps, by many clients. I assume they were rather positive feedbacks. And one of my clients, for example, compared me once to Geralt of Rivia, the character from The Witcher. It was very interesting analysis, something I have never synthesized myself. But the reason that for the comparison was that it is someone marked by strength and integrity, but also by social punishment, societal punishment, I would even say, for being too different and for having certain talents and viewpoints and skills and abilities that feel frightening to people. That was very interesting. So what they admired is that I have tried to live life, and my impulse to transcend the limits society places on possibility. Yes, and by the way, The Witcher, not many people know, it's a Polish book.
Okay.
And a lot of it is well outlining the valuable traits of the spirit of this land, I would say. Of course, every land has, let's say, great and the bright and dark traits, but as long as the best of it comes, this book embodies a lot of it, especially in dark humor. The absurdity of the moral ambiguity. It makes me feel sometimes that James Hollis maybe have grown up reading it. Of course, I know he have. He has sometimes this tone of talking about the absurdity of the suffering that life causes. Yes,
Yeah.
and but then again, there are clients also who are looking for feeling the warmth that they didn't receive from their mother. And I may not be their best analyst, but some in the same sense or on the same continuum, maybe want to break through or climb the wall of ice. And then I'm happy to take them on a metaphorical expedition. And I also say that overall, they probably lie that I have really participated in life because, again, I think to understand life is to live life. And they feel that I am, let's say, stained with freshly squeezed drops of the juice of life. Yes, because I always try to live life like I am squeezing the juices of it, and that's my kind of. Whenever I'm making choices, I often bring this metaphor to myself, which is closer to experiencing this phenomenon.
Would you share with us one interesting Jungian thought that life has taught you?
Yes, at the beginning may sound very repetitive because it's quite common, but I will maybe develop it to a little bit further point that everything we experience as reality, and I emphasize experience, not only perceive, is filtered through our own mind. Means conditioning, our conditioning, our projections, our especially unexamined fears and desires. This most disowned part of us. Yes. So we craft ideology and beliefs that justify it the most. So when I listen to people, ideologies or beliefs, the first thing I'm asking myself is what they need to justify by this, not how convincing are these ideologies or beliefs. Yes. And I think until we truly grasp this experientially, again, not just theoretically, we won't see the world. We have blindfolds on a lot of it. So we think we are, okay, we are seeing a mirror, but we confuse it for a window. Yes, I put it this one. I would like to bring a few anecdotes here, a couple of them, let's say, that really well illustrate it. And maybe before I will mention, I don't know if you're familiar with seafaring. In seafaring, there is such a thing often a navigation screen displays as COG, cognitive overground.
Okay.
It is very interesting marker because it helps you correct the idea of your perception. What does it mean? If you are moving against the waves and the waves have a certain speed, let's say the waves are moving with 4 knots, yes, against you, and you are moving against the waves, you may feel like you are moving 4 knots an hour. That's your speed, but actually that's your speed over water, over ground, which is the only relevant reference for you because you are aiming to reach the land in the end, that is somewhere. You are not moving at all because you are only seeing the waves passing you. And that's a very extreme example. Usually, it's just minor discrepancy. Let's say you are moving west, but there is a wind blowing from the south, so you don't see it because all the water is moving as well together with this wind, and so you are actually moving northwest. And you only know it if you look at this COG, cognitive overground, because it measures the track you are leaving over the ground, over the bottom of the ocean. So today GPS makes it easy. So you know actually what's the angle of your track and what's your actual course. And I think in psychology, it's really important to learn it, how our our life COG should be applied each time we look at situations, at people, at personal dynamics, at anything. Because we all have our necessity for COG, we all have our wind of distortion and disorientation, yes, and our local weather conditions generated by our analogous experiences. And I think that's what this thought would be leading to. So I'll give you now these 2 anecdotes. First is humorous, and it's not intensely direct, but you can find a humorous reference to it. I was photo shooting a lot with indigenous people in the Arctic, and I once was presenting these photos to the mother of a man/boy. He was like 17, 18 when he participated in this photo shoot. who allowed him to be part of it. And in this photo shoot, I dressed him like a great spirit in animal furs and like this kind of very intense shamanic look, let's say. And the mother only spoke Greenlandic, so I had a translator as well. He was not present there. And the youngest son of this woman, so his youngest brother, was there, and he was like 3 years old. So as the mother was watching my photographs, she was talking to him like a mother talks to a baby, but with a very particular tone. I hadn't known her before, so I didn't know it was normal. It felt a little bit like a narrative from some mystical, slightly horrific thing, like these long, pronounced words, like a bit like a scary fairy tale. But I thought it's just her way to express that this is a cool photo or something. But I finished my kind of speech, and the translator never translated back to me because she was speaking to a baby each time, to that little baby with her youngest child, 3 years old child. And then when she left, I asked this translator, could you please tell me what she was telling to this baby all the time? And she says, yes, more or less all the time she was telling to him, look how ugly is your brother.
Oh.
Yes, I mean, it was funny, it was not in a bad way, but it just shows how it's, how we can see what we want to see.
Right.
So in her eyes, she was thrilled about it, but she was like, really, it was really, really funny. And then another situation that I remember, and that one actually played a strong role in shaping my, and let's say even identity, but point of view overall, because in the past, I was exploring a lot of different religious and spiritual movements, and I spent some years among different movements, and I remember one situation that made me question our perception of reality, like I introduced, starting thought, when my friend once dressed as one of the spiritual masters, and they are very easy to mimic because they all wear orange robes and they have long black hair. So if you put that kind of wig and that kind of clothes, then you look like them in a very general sense. And that 8 years old girl who was with parents, she saw it and she experienced a mystical state and she cried and she was like in spiritual ecstasy. And I knew that she cannot be aware of this, and she did not just push it. It's not easy. I knew that she really experienced it, but I knew that her mind created it from scratch, that there was nothing really to be experienced. Perhaps the spiritual master itself would not be able to cause it in the same way, and the people just build it on their own to, like I said before, to justify their needs and their beliefs and their complexes and their unlived life and their unconscious desires and so on. Yes, and this made me think that not only ideologies and beliefs of other people are often a mirror they confuse for a window, but even their experiences. So from then on, even if somebody tells you their experience, I will still often ask myself, and myself too, about my own experiences, what if this experience perhaps meant to validate or justify or facilitate or ease for me? Yes, I think that was a big thought. So the song I would like to present is this song I mentioned before that could be later presented about the exile and return, the words that appeared a lot in my narrative here. And it is basically a song for anyone returning from an exile or for everyone reuniting with the mammalian self. A big part of us that we often struggle with. Often the main part we come to therapies to heal, and the main part that challenges us in this so-called civilized life, often forgotten and with left for us without instructions. And that mammalian self with us, the fierce creature within who never stop yearning for expression and belonging.
Stream of warm blood, like a river of life. Stream of warm blood, like a river of life, stream of warm blood, like a river of life, a stream of warm blood, like a river of life.
Amidst lava and moss, I chose to install my soul where geysers sang and the polar night took its toll. I sought solace in the vastness, the silence so deep. But in that quiet, my own heart incomplete.
But in the quiet, my own heart incomplete.
In fanfare's hope, I continued to try.
Incomplete.
Gummy berries that promise the sky.
Incomplete.
Yet in the end, to my mild dismay,
Incomplete.
there were only mushrooms and decrescendo play. I smelt at the depth of smile with the depth of glaciers and fjords. But the silence of Arctic mile lacks sensual chords. I traded the warmth of laughter for Northern Lights show. Believing that nature's melody would be my sole reward. But as the notes sounded, the disconnection grew, and I realized the harm to myself's own. But as the notes sounded, the disconnection grew, and I realized the harm to myself I do. By the life's cliff, to the mammal inside, I apologize deeply for the times you've died, for the mute years and the pain it brought me, that yearned for expression, for permission to be. I vow to embrace as time passes by, a stream of warm blood, like a river of life. I vow to embrace as time passes by, a stream of warm blood, like a river of life. flesh, blood, and bone. Resonance ending the life I've outgrown. I vow to embrace my flesh, blood, and bone. Resonance ending the life I've outgrown. I vow to embrace my flesh, blood, and bone. Resonance ending the life I've outgrown. I vow to embrace.
Well, it's been a privilege and an honor having you as my guest on this podcast, Fiann. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Laura. And really, thank you for putting effort to learn this complex life I have lived, because I know it's not easy to approach an interview when it is a very, let's say, uncommon pattern of life that you need to analyze, and for making this podcast worth listening to. I like Benjamin Franklin's statement that either write the book worth reading or live life worth writing about. And yes, I think this podcast is something worth listening to, thanks to your effort.
Thank you. You're fascinating, and I appreciate you.
Thank you, and look forward to meeting you again.
Speaking of Jung is not just a podcast, it is also a website. Please visit speakingofjung.com, where you will find extensive information on the life and work of C.G. Jung, show notes and audio downloads for all of our 167 episodes, a comprehensive books page, a blog, and now a monthly email newsletter, which you can sign up for at the bottom of our front page. All of our episodes are also available on YouTube podcasts, which you can access by subscribing to our channel, Jungian Laura. It's free. Just click the subscribe button. I created Speaking of Jung almost 10 years ago. This year is our 10th anniversary, and all of our content is still free to access, but it is not free to produce. Please consider contributing to our tip jar on Patreon for just $5 a month, or visit our support page at speakingofjung.com/support for links on all the ways you can help keep this podcast and our website alive. With special thanks to James Hollis, to Patricia Preisner, and to each and every one of our Patreon members and donors, I am Laura London, and you've been listening to Speaking of Jung.
I am the voice lost in time.